NetSparker, the developers of desktop and cloud-based web application security scanners that enable you to automatically identify vulnerabilities in your web applications and web services. NetSparker scanners employ a unique and dead-accurate vulnerability scanning engine that automatically verifies vulnerabilities with their proof of concept. For more information, visit them on the web at netsparker.com or email at contact@netsparker.com. Recorded Future. They help security teams make more confident decisions faster. Recorded Future's technology automates broad collection and analysis of cyber threat data and delivers the rich external context you need to understand alerts and emerging threats. With real-time threat intelligence from Recorded Future, security teams respond to threats 63% faster and find undetected threats 10 times quicker. To get started, go to recordedfuture.com/securityweekly and sign up for the Recorded Future Cyber Daily. Every day, you'll receive an email with the top results for trending technical indicators, cyber news, exploited vulnerabilities, suspicious IP addresses, and more. Subscribe today and stay ahead of cyber attacks. Endgame's converged endpoint security platform is transforming security programs. Their people, processes, and technology with the most powerful endpoint protection and simplest user experience, ensuring analysts of any skill level can stop targeted attacks before information theft. Endgame unifies prevention, detection, and threat hunting to stop known and unknown attacker behaviors at scale with a single agent. For more information, visit endgame.com. Welcome back, everyone, to Paul's Security Weekly. Some of you have told us that you're overwhelmed by the amount of content we distribute. In an attempt to make it a little easier, you can subscribe to our listener interest list. You can go to securityweekly.com/subscribe, click the button, get added to the list. Many of you have already. Thank you very much. And we could talk probably for the next a long time, maybe hour, about what we're doing in the back end to support that. There's a series of projects that involve a lot of technology. It includes coding all the way to website interface updates, design, all kinds of process stuff, thing. I like the whole. It's all for you, the listeners.
Yeah, we want to make it easier for listeners to get content, get notified when new content comes out, find content on the website. So the things we're doing on the website side with what we're doing on our posts.
And I love that the demo we saw today of the new website was basically to make it easier for those that consume the content for free, which is most of you to come to the website and find that content. And then there's like multiple tiers, right? If you're willing to give us registration data, that's another tier. Eventually there'll be some paid subscriptions, right? That'll get you another tier. And all of that is a tiered system.
Yes. So we're working on it. We're almost there.
Although transcriptions are so cool and so hilarious to read. If you've ever read a transcription of particularly this show, which I mean, I have just because we're messing with stuff, it's absolutely hilarious. Hilarious.
I can only imagine. Yeah. And if we slow it down in speed, it
yeah,
probably gets even more funny.
We have way too much fun. Kathleen Smith from CyberSecJobs is here with us. She's the CMO, Chief Marketing Officer for ClearJobs.net and CyberSecJobs.com. Kathleen, welcome to the show.
Welcome. I am so happy to be here.
So, Kathleen, in reading your bio, I wanted to start with your bio. In your bio, it mentions, obviously by the title, we understand that you're trying to help cybersecurity professionals get jobs, but it seems to be focused on jobs that are cleared. Is that ClearJobs.net that require clearance with the U.S. government? Is that correct?
So actually, I have the honor of being the Chief Marketing Officer for two companies. Mm-hmm. The first is ClearJobs.net, which I've been doing that for 18 years. I can't believe I'm saying that. And we were asked by the state of Maryland and the state of Texas about 4 years ago to start running their cybersecurity career events. And we basically ended up duplicating the program model that we have for ClearJobs, focusing specifically in the cybersecurity community. So I have two job boards. One is ClearJobs.net for people with security clearances. The other is CyberSecJobs.com for people who are looking for cybersecurity jobs.
And are you the owner of both of these companies?
I'm one of the three founding members, yes.
Okay, of both companies. That's awesome. Mm-hmm. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But what was interesting is, sorry to interrupt.
That's okay.
The model that we found, or the model that I found, of getting to know what job seekers want and what employers want was to really get out into the community. So you may have seen that I tend to go to a lot of conferences. I've
Sure.
met many of you at either DerbyCon or out at Hacker Summer Camp, but getting on the ground floor and finding out what really are some of the challenges is what's been driving me for the last 4 years to get out into the community.
Well, and that's so important in our job market today, in my opinion. And Kathleen, I'm very interested in your opinion that this is your area of expertise, right? Is like you kind of playing matchmaker, right? Between the companies that are hiring, not even kind of, the companies that are hiring and the people who are looking for jobs. You're playing matchmaker. So understanding what each of their needs and requirements are, even if they can't articulate them themselves, is extremely important in our field today, because I feel like there's a lot of miscommunication.
You hit the nail on the head, because I really believe that it's a challenge of our communication and our challenge of the conversation that we're having about jobs. And while I'm not a staffing firm or a headhunter that does the matching of the jobs, I actually provide the tools for the employers and the job seekers to find their jobs. Because
Right.
you're right, Paul, it's a lot of people do not know how to articulate what they want to do. A lot of people will reach out to me and say, find me a job. And I'm like, wait a minute, you don't even know me. You see me on Twitter, you see me at conferences, but how in the world am I going to be that mind reader that's going to know what is going to work for you? And this is a lot of tough love that I've been giving out in the community, to say, you really have to figure out what you want to do. It's not that you want to follow some rock star pen tester, or that you want to get the big salary. We all want to be happy, and we all want to have a really great job and a really great life. But you have to answer those really tough questions of, what kind of company do you want to work with? What kind of experience do you have? What do you do for your own career development? I mean, I'm really surprised at people who just go around and get certs, and they're like, well, maybe I'll get a job. I'm really tired of people, sort of saying, there's no one out there going to give me a job. And it's like, well, have you really crafted in your own mind what you want to get as a job, and what is the next step that you want to do?
It's interesting, Kathleen, hearing you saying that. I have a lot of parallels into as I progress in my career, and we think about career and business decisions. Given experience, I think of them differently. Right? When we craft a go-to-market strategy, when we craft the goals for the company and things like that, like there's a lot more to it now than I think I thought of it when I first started in this field, right? When I first started in this field, I was like, yeah, I want to do cool stuff, and making money's cool, right? But now when I think of that in kind of a business context, I'm like, what are the requirements and what are the goals for, those things that I want to accomplish? What are the objectives to get to those things that I want to accomplish? And why do I want to accomplish those things? It's a much more analytical process. And I think if we can instill that upon those who want to get into the field, they'll have a much better time basically playing matchmaker, right?
Well, it's challenging for most of us, because no one is ever really taught career development or job search anywhere. All we're taught is the number one way someone finds a job is through employee referral. There's studies done by Career Crossroads that say that the number one way a company finds their next candidate is through employee referral. We did some surveys last year and sort of looked at the job search challenges within our community. And a lot of people said, the number one way they found a job was, asking people on social media or referral. And what's challenging is that no one is really looking, as you said, a go-to-market strategy. I have these skills. What
Right.
is the next thing I want to do? So, what we've been hoping through Higher Ground, which I run at B-Size Las Vegas, and several of the other career tracks at various different cons throughout the country, is really saying, look, it's your own responsibility. Don't just post it on Twitter that you want a job and take the next one. We all have some really great skills. Really craft what you want to do next. Don't just, put something out there and accept it and be unhappy in 6 months and leave.
Yeah, and so I think, Kathleen, the other side of this equation, right? That's from the employee side, but there's also a challenge, I think, with the employer, right? We
Oh yeah,
covered,
huge.
yeah, I mean, Paul and I covered an article on Business Security Weekly on Monday.
Yeah, it was a good one.
From Gartner Security and Risk, talking about the FUD of the job market, right? And one of the challenges I think employers have is really articulating what are they looking for? What are the requirements of a job? What are the job titles, right? There's a lot of nuances between the title and the responsibilities. And I think there's also a component of this that the employers have to take on and say, we need to do a better job of articulating what requirements and skills we want in these jobs to better align to find the right people to fill them. So I think it's actually on both sides is employees, right? People out hunting for jobs need to do a better job of articulating their skills and know what they want to do. And I think employers have a responsibility to do a better job of really building the requirements and skills they're looking for so that those marriages happen easier.
I totally agree with you, Mark. And this is not something that just happens within this industry. And I know a lot of people are really frustrated with this. I've seen several of the chats and discussions out there about you ask for a junior person that, with 12 years experience with the technology that just came out 3 years ago. This is something that is endemic within the entire recruiting and HR industry, is that job postings and job requirements that are posted are not well written. And this is something that we work as our company. We actually consult all of our customers and say, let's flesh this out a little bit more. On ClearJobs, it's a little difficult to do that because a lot of it comes through government contract. On the CyberSecJobs.com component, it's easier to be able to say, let's get some of your frontline managers in here and let's really talk about that job requirement and really making it more readable and understandable to the community. But I think the bigger challenge that I find is that we have so many companies out there that are now looking for security professionals, and most of their recruiting teams have either done healthcare or finance or admin kind of recruiting, and then all of a sudden they're being asked to find a reverse engineer who can also do several different modalities at the same time. So I frequently tell job seekers, it's like, look, I'm looking at your resume and I can tell you that this isn't going to make it through the first gate. So let's make it that it gets through the first gate. As long as you promise me that you're going to spend some time and be patient with that recruiter on the other end. If they sort of flub up, please don't post them on the Twitter account shit recruiters say. At least talk them through it and do some reverse education, because that is the way that we're going to make a difference, is that frontline education back to the recruiters, making them understand the job requirements and the skills that are going to make that person successful.
So comment and a question.
Yeah.
The question, first of all, no, I'll start with the comment. The comment's more, and you sort of alluded to it. I think there's a gap between what the areas of a company know that they want to hire and translating that to the people that actually do the hiring and training them on how to do the recruiting and what are the things to look for. And the Mai Tais kicked in, so I forget what my question was. Oh, I know what my question was. I'm curious, because I've seen it too out on Twitter and social media, people complaining about the looking for a junior with 12 years of experience or all that. Is that strictly a function of the companies, either they only have budget for or think they only want to pay for so much? Is that what's making it a junior category?
It's a case-by-case basis, so I can't do something across the board, but I can definitely say that it's worth networking within that company and finding out some people to refer you in and have an education to understand that this isn't a junior position, this is more a mid-level position. But you have to remember that we've had sort of this very quick evolution of companies needed a cybersecurity professional, and then all of a sudden they needed someone who can do a variety of blue team, red team, reverse engineering, everything within a matter of 18 months to 3 years. So it's having the company catch up with the fact that they need to have a full security team, where before they used to only have to hire someone for the IT department. And I think that it's understanding, educating people as to the value that you're going to bring to the company, educating them to the value that you're going to be lowering their risk, or you're going to be making bottom line adjustments to their business propositions, because people are now more looking at, okay, what is our brand image? What is our employer brand? What are all these different things that are now at risk because we don't have a really good security team on base? So yeah, there's this gap. Yes, it's a big challenge, but at the same time, I walk around to all of the cons and I see people who have 20, 30 years experience and they're frustrated trying to find a job.
Yeah.
It's understanding you need to get through those 2 or 3 gates to be able to get your resume in front of the hiring manager or the program manager. And a lot of people sort of go, well, why do I have to go through HR? Why do I have to go through recruiting? Every single company has some kind of compliance that they have to go through, including going through Department of Labor and EEOC compliance. And yes, there are a lot of companies out there that are hiring staffing firms that are going in through their security department. But eventually everything is going to route through the HR recruiting department, and doing the reverse education, going in and explaining, yeah, you may not understand what I do. Let's step back and let's talk about this job and what do you know about it, and let me tell you how I can make a difference.
Now, Kathleen, in hearing everyone talk, it really, I'm trying to think about how we approach hiring today and how we're kind of bucking the system. And I'm just going to preface this with, I don't know how to scale this, but it seems to me that larger organizations, they have an HR team, right? Large enough to have a staff of people in HR and recruiting, right? That there's this finite, almost mathematical formula that they use to even qualify a candidate, to even consider them in any capacity. And that is, what's your education?
Yep.
What are your skills, your previous experience and skills in certain in this case, technologies? What are your certifications? What are your salary requirements, and how many years of experience did you have?
Yeah, I think to me, one of the biggest challenges in this space for us is HR has a structure.
I think that's the structure.
They have a structure.
Yeah.
And they're saying, look, I'm looking for X, Y, and Z to fill roles at certain levels, and therefore I have certain requirements that I have to mandate because that's how I built the structure.
And Matt, 20 or 30 years ago, maybe that worked, maybe it didn't. What I'm kind of embracing today is I'm taking all of those, what did I say, 5 things, right? And I'm throwing it out the window. And I'm saying, do you have the right aptitude and the right attitude, which basically is my formula for saying, are you worth us putting time into, right? Am I going to teach you the right things, given that you have the right attitude, the right aptitude to be an employee here?
Well, I want Kathleen to respond, but I would add to that. But I agree with that approach, but a lot of companies are looking for mid-level to senior positions, and it's hard for them to pull the trigger on somebody that is not proven.
Or doesn't have a degree or a certification.
Right.
Or some of these other
to Jeff's point,
requirements.
I'm bucking the trend. I want to hire for attitude and aptitude. Kathleen, I want to hear your thoughts on this, because I feel like I'm very controversial.
Questions here.
Yeah.
Hope you're keeping up.
I'm trying to keep up. So, and I'm trying not to move so much so that my Italian-esque hand moving.
Oh, no, I do. Have you seen my hands through this segment, Kathleen? So, Kathleen,
you have
I
a
guess
much better Mac than I do.
So, Kathleen, I guess what I'm saying is,
Paul's question.
Yeah,
So,
go ahead.
Paul, totally agree. Aptitude and attitude. So the number one reason why an employee or a candidate does not work in a company is the lack of a culture fit.
Yeah.
So that is why a lot of people tend to hire people that they know at networking events, because you can find out pretty quickly if the culture fits. And then you can go back through and find out, okay, do they have the certs? Do they have the experience? Going to the aptitude, I really like that a lot of companies are now trying to look at what CTFs people have been competing in and what do they learn. And this is one thing that, we know what CTFs have been around 20, 30 years, but rarely do I see people doing something with, sitting down after a CTF and writing down, okay, what was the challenge? What were the resources? Who were the members of my team? Who dropped the ball? What did I learn? What did I fuck up on? Oh, am I allowed to swear?
Yes.
What did I mess up on? What
Hell
did I fuck
yes.
up on? And then be able to use that experience not only in the next interview you have, because there's always going to be that question, when did you learn something? But also using that same experience when you go in for your annual review, because a lot of us go through these annual reviews going, man, I only got like a 3 out of 5. Well, are you doing your own salesmanship? I mean, are you being your own ambassador or advocate, going in and saying, look,
Are you building your own SWOT
I didn't
analysis?
have this chance to learn something at this job, but I went out and I competed in 2 or 3 different CTFs, and these are the things I learned, and I applied them to my job.
Now, it's interesting, Kathleen. We sit here as we've been doing this 14 years, and roughly 4 years ago, right? Moved.
2016
was more. It's more. It had to hire people basically, right? So I've gained some experience, albeit very little. I like your assessment of adding that criteria. I said attitude and aptitude. You added cultural fit. And some of the experience I've had, I've hired people because they were great cultural fit, and I've seen other organizations hire people because they're a great cultural fit. However, they maybe lack one of those other 2 areas in attitude or aptitude, right? Like, I really think you need all 3, because someone who's a great cultural fit may not be in. I'm pretty sure you probably read Good to Great. Yeah, they're not a level 5 leader, right? Or even a level 4 leader, but they're still a good cultural fit. Still is not the success formula for a great employee, right?
Well, that begs the question.
Well, hold on. Let Kathleen respond to that, Jeff.
Well, I was just adding on to it.
So what's interesting is that companies may be looking at the cultural fit, but very rarely do I see, professionals looking at the cultural fit. And they don't realize that they need to ask those questions when they're interviewing with a company. They need to check out what the company does on social media. They need to check out what they do at a con. Are they there in the community or not? And that's going to be hard for companies that are not truly service-based. I mean, who's going to know what a financial institution or a healthcare company or a retailer is as far as culture is concerned? Because there's a lot of people in our community who have been out and have been really great, and we would hire them in a minute. And then they get into a company and they're a completely different personality. So we have to be really
and the same thing is true on the flip side.
Yeah.
I think that potential candidates that are applying to a company need to talk to existing employees
and former employees
and make their own decisions. I agree, Matt, and make their own decisions, right? If it's a cultural fit or not. I think about, I don't know if I necessarily want to say that on air, but where certain people work, right, can give the appearance, and this is outside of security, can give the appearance, great companies, salaries, the highest for that profession. However, if you talk to some of the employees that are very skilled, they have degrees and very, very technical careers, the culture is absolutely atrocious. The way the company treats the employees is atrocious, right? And so as a person applying to that position, you're going to want to know those things going in. I mean, maybe you throw it to the side and you'll be happy there. And again, it depends on who you work for, which is another component we haven't mentioned yet. But these are the kinds of, it's an interesting dynamic between employer.
So my question was simply going to be, and we're sort of skirting around it, but attitude, aptitude, culture, we're saying those are 3 very important things, if not the 3 important things.
To me, again, disagree with me if you will.
But I think we can run with them for a little bit.
Sure.
What are ways that an employee, a prospective employer can try to, get that sense from a candidate, and then what are some things that a candidate can do to try to feel that out from a prospective employer?
Great question.
So as far as a candidate being able to present that information, we did a survey last year and we're going to redo it this year. I've been active in the community, I think more like 8 years, but really volunteering. This is my 4th year with B-Sides Las Vegas and 4th or 5th year with several of the other cons. We did a survey last year that really delved into community volunteering and the skills that people learned while they were doing community volunteering. They were all the critical non-technical skills that we hear about frequently: the communication, the planning, the organization, leadership. And so I really go around and present to people, volunteering in our community is a fabulous way of, one, building those skills, but two, being able to have the experience that you can then share with your current employer as far as, look, I am leadership potential, or I have been working on my own professional development. And the flip side is, I always tell companies, if you really want to build a good pipeline, being involved in the community, sponsoring the conferences, making sure that your employees have paid time off to go in and be part of the conferences. In part of our study, we found that about 80% of the community had employees who had paid time off by their employers to be able to go in and work in the community. Now, what better employer brand word of mouth do you want than having a lot of your security professionals out there in the community telling everyone, hey, it's really great working for this company because all of my time here is paid. And at the same time, how better as a candidate to show a prospective employer, yeah, I not only care about this community, but I get out there, I learn, I'm part of the CTFs, I make sure that I'm learning cutting edge stuff. I care about people and I help them at registration. I get involved in the CFP and I review all of the materials. So I really think that community volunteering is something that differentiates this industry from any other industry that I've worked in.
So, yeah, I would say, Kathleen, that to be a successful either employee or employer in this field, you have to really support the community, right? In that not only as a company are you supporting the community, but as an employee, you're supporting the community. In that, one of the things that we've been discussing lately is some of the conferences, B-Sides as an example, doing a fantastic job. Again, nothing, it's, not trying to say anything bad about B-Sides, but B-Sides will have conferences typically that go into the weekend. And to B-Sides' credit, the reason they do that is because there's so many people that either work in security today or want to get into the field whose employer does not allow for them time off from their job to attend a conference. And we at Security Week, we're kind of like, really? Like, because anyone here at Security Weekly can go, I want to go here in support of my job. And Matt and I are like, yeah, like, go do that. That's good for everyone.
But remember back when we were at Tenable, right? And the embrace that we had with the community and supporting B-Side, supporting the regional events, getting out there
it's
and
one
working
of the reasons
with them.
I went to work for
Tenable. And it's one of the reasons why we had a really successful recruiting program, because we were at every single community event back then to really get the Tenable brand out, to really educate people on what Tenable was and be able to recruit effectively out of those events. And if you're not there, how are you going to effectively recruit talent to your organization if you're not engaged in those community events? So I think it's extremely important.
Right. So Kathleen, is that your advice for employers to, because I really think this is a problem, to allow their employees to attend events and be involved in the community?
So when I talk to employers, I say there are a few things that you need to do. First, go in and find out which conferences your current team goes to, and find out how often they go. Have they gone to every single, DerbyCon? Do they always take the first 10 days of August off?
Yeah.
And then ask them, what are the other conferences or organizations that they want to be supportive of? And then ask what does anyone on the team want to present? Does anyone on the team want to be part of the organizing committee? Is anyone on the team, responsible for sponsorship? Because I find it interesting. There's always this disconnect between recruiting, marketing communications, and biz dev.
Yep.
And they're all with 3 different budgets and they all go in 3 different directions. I say, why don't you just look at your assets and leverage them? You have a training and development budget. Why aren't you using that to pay for your employees to go to the conferences and get the new knowledge and the new training, and also maybe work on their new their non-technical skills.
And Kathleen, you bring up a great point, right? Like, not to use SANS as an example, high quality training, right? Absolutely worth it. A lot of organizations, if you've got you can't afford to have your whole security team, 1, out all at the same time.
Right.
2, going to every single SANS conference, right? I mean, there are costs to these conferences and training. However, you got a budget. When I worked for the university, we would rotate who went to the SANS conferences, right? And whoever didn't go to the SANS conferences that year would go to the local events. Maybe the other employees went too, right? But we'd get local events. But the organization would give you time for professional development, right? They're not telling you got to take vacation time to go to a day free local event, right? We've been to a lot of local events that are very low cost or free, even here in a small state of Rhode Island, right? And that's the kind of professional development that I think job seekers should look for.
Well, and somehow
Well, I think that.
Go ahead, Kathleen.
So I think that we as a community sort of also have not been doing ourselves a good service by, a lot of people see the conferences and they see the partying and they see.
Yeah, I agree. Yep.
All of that.
Yep.
So it really goes back to some of us saying, okay, these are actually professional development opportunities. And, it's worth it. I think a lot of the tough love that I give people is, don't expect your employer or the next recruiter you're going to talk to be able to understand your world.
Yeah.
You need to explain it in a business sense. So, I asked for a vacation day to go and be part of this conference and do this CTF, or, oh, by the way, my paper got accepted to present on. You really need to write that up and present it to your manager and say, this is what I'm doing in my spare time. You're asking if I have the right attitude to be part of here. I'm taking my time and my money and my weekends to go and, have fun. Yeah, there was an after party. It might have been a little bit too out of control.
Well, sure. And Kathleen, to your point, when I've worked in a university, or any organization that has a budget, right? If they were to say, look, you don't have to take vacation to go to this conference. However, you have to do a trip report, right? And I was like, oh, like, really? But I'm like, no. Now I look back and I go, that's a good measure. If I have to write a report as to what I learned at that event, maybe if I go to a community event like DerbyCon or a B-Sides, I attend talks, I take some notes, I bring that back, and I have to do a presentation to my team of what I learned upon. Those requirements, I am totally fine. I encourage that.
And we used to do that in the early days.
Yeah.
In the early days of going to events, a trip report was always required. Even when
a presentation, you got to go present to your team. What did you learn? What were the new things you learned? But that's beneficial. So I didn't have to take a vacation, but I went to that. My company paid for me to be at that event. I'm doing them a service by bringing whatever I learned, whatever level of knowledge of understanding I had. There was this new technique for assessment for red team, for blue team, whatever. There was this new thing, and I'm going to go present it. We may use it or not, whatever, but I'm presenting that information back to the whole team. That's a value to the organization. It's also a value to you as the individual who went to that event. That is, now you have to do some diligence and
you got to pay attention.
Write down what you learned. Right? I'm not going, to Kathleen's point, I'm not going to parties all day, every day and night during the event. Like, I got to do it. And go to parties. That's fine. Socialization is important.
Hey, culture-wise, work hard, play hard. Work hard, play hard.
I learn during the day. I go to talks. I do my thing. Okay, I'm done. I can go to a party. I can socialize and be with the community.
So there's a couple things I'm hearing from this. One is I think this speaks a lot to the culture and for people that are looking for work. I've worked at companies that had a training budget, and they'll send you out for training. whether they send you to a conference for your training or not. But I think that's a good indicator, and I think it all rolls together if they allow you to go to a conference, whether it's on, maybe you're paying for it, but maybe they let you have the time off. But I've worked for companies where they expect you to keep up on your training and your certifications, and you're on your own to do it.
Yeah.
I've also worked for companies that pay for it and support that. So I think that's one indicator. The other thing I'm hearing is that I lost it. Never mind. Go ahead.
Well, for us,
if I can
go
just say
Kathleen.
on Jeff's point, a lot of us. So one recurring thing that we've had in this conversation is education, and it's not only education of the employer, but it is also of the job seeker, the candidate. And we've talked a lot about the candidate has to do the trip reports, and they have to be able to present to their team what they did at a conference. I think that as more and more security professionals are getting into non-security companies, retail, hotels, restaurant chains, banks, everything, it's going to take a lot more education on the candidate's side to be able to say, hey, if you want, I'm going to need to stay up to date on all of this technology. I'm going to have to stay up to date on what's cutting edge. And I don't have time. We don't have time as a company to wait for it to come out in a certification class. So as part of me working for XYZ retailer or this finance company, I need to make sure that you understand that I'm going to 2 or 3 different conferences a year, and we need to negotiate what you're going to pay for that, because that is part of my training and that is part of my professional development. And this is one thing that I see a lot not happening in our community. A lot of people just walk in, they answer the questions, they do the tech interview, but they're not their own business advocate, and they're not their own educator to explain to the new company, look, this is a great job, but I don't think you're understanding all of the potential that is there.
Yeah.
And I don't see a lot of people in the community sort of standing up for themselves in that aspect.
No, I agree with you on this point. Is you've got to know what you want when you walk in, right? You've got to be able to be in control of what you want to get out of that job experience, right? And if you're going to walk into a company and you can't hit some of those goals, you've got to kind of write them down. You got to know, what are those top few things that I got to see out of this employer
But from
if I'm
the
going to go there?
employer's perspective, that one of their fears is, if I send any employee to training and let them be involved in the community, they're going to learn stuff and make connections, and they might leave. But that's that's not on the employee. That's on the employer,
right?
To create a culture and environment that keeps that person there, right?
I had a customer many years ago. They had a very strict policy that they would not send any of their people to training, because if they sent them to training or sent them to conferences, they'd get more qualified and they'd leave. So they just wouldn't do it.
What's the adage? You can train. You can train your employees and they could leave, or you could not train your employees and they could stay.
Well, so I remember my second thought, and it sort of ties into this. An invaluable part of the learning experience. If you go to a conference and you're expected to do a trip report, or even better, a presentation, back to the rest of the team, that helps to reinforce what you've learned. I remember back when I was in college, I took an economics course one time, and I was not a master at economics, but I ended up having to tutor somebody else. She was a very attractive young lady, and I was interested in her, so I was motivated. But I understood that course better than any other course I ever took, because
not the person you married, right?
No.
Okay.
Long gone. But because I had to be able to regurgitate what we were learning and explain it to somebody that wasn't really getting it, and try to get them to the point, and she passed the class. I forget what she got, but I got her to the point where she could understand it. I really knew it. So it was a learning tool for me, as much, if not more, than a learning tool.
Kathleen, if you were to apply to a company and you said, look, I want to go to conferences, but look, when I go to a conference, I'm going to take notes. I'm going to do a presentation. I'm going to do a report, and I'm going to do a presentation on what I learned at that conference. That could also help kind of shift the tides of companies going, yeah, whatever our policy is, like we don't let people go. But if people are applying, going, no, like when we go, we're going to bring that knowledge back in a very formal manner.
Well, it's not only bringing it back in a very formal way, it's you're also what is called the employee brand ambassador or the employer brand ambassador.
There's another benefit. That's good.
If you're at a conference and you're wearing a tenable shirt or something like that, you're able to say, yeah, I'm here on behalf of my company. And that is marketing credo that a lot of people would spend millions of dollars worth, and having 2 or 3 people at a conference wearing your t-shirt, that's invaluable. But it's, again, getting back to what I've been seeing in the community. People are just, oh, no one will hire me, or I don't like my career or something. I was like, I'm sorry, quit with the pity party. You know, you have the resources. This is an incredibly supportive community. Don't tell me you can't find a job and you can't create the career you want, because there are so many resources and so many mentors in this community who can tell you what to do the next step.
And so you're absolutely, so Kathleen, absolutely correct. In fact, I was on Twitter encouraging one such person who was frustrated with the process. I'm like, look, we've got openings. I'm like, I can't promise you a full-time position. I can't promise you a contractor position. But look, for the right person who has the right attitude, aptitude, and cultural fit, I can make a really compelling case to my CEO who's sitting to my left, my operations manager who do the budget, right? Because I'm a tech guy. I do the business stuff as like a hobby, but they control the business aspect. I'm like, I can make a really compelling case for that. So come talk to me, right? And that's I think the kind of matchmaking that really needs to happen.
But Kathleen's bringing up something. If we can have a moment of maybe the downer moment, if you will. I go to a lot of conferences. I speak at a lot of conferences. I have a lot of people coming up to me asking me, how do I get in? How do I do this? How do I do that? There's a certain, and I don't want to be too curmudgeon-y in this, but I get the sense from a lot of people, and the word that keeps coming to my mind is entitled. They see this industry, they think it's cool and fun and sexy, or they think they're going to be able to make a great living, whatever the reason is, but they're not necessarily really cut out for it, or they don't have the right attitude or aptitude.
At the end of the day, you're here to work and put in effort for a goal, right?
How do you... When you have to talk somebody down, I guess is my question. What are the strategies? What are some ways to either, constructively or not, try to tell people, you don't have the right attitude. You're not really there yet. Because I sense you probably do that more often than I do.
Yeah, I tell people, do you really have the passion for this?
Yeah.
And I'm probably older than most of you in the room, but at the end of the day,
the two gentlemen sitting to my left, I would venture not, maybe even Jeff on Skype. Yeah.
I was going to say, first of all,
anyway,
Jeff Man is old as fuck.
Jeff might be the oldest one of the bunch.
Yeah, no, I've had conversations with Jeff. We've had this comparison, so I know where he is.
Age is just a number, Kathleen. Continue.
Yes,
We've counted rings on our appendages.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, God. Do you have the passion for this? Do you really have the problem-solving skills? Do you really, at the end of the day, do you solve the problem, or do you just go get a beer? Most of the people I know in this community that are successful, they want to find the solution. They want to find the answer, and they won't rest until they find that.
And Kathleen, I just want to say that sometimes I would go through moments where I thought that was generational, that the younger generation did not have that attitude or aptitude where they're passionate about technology and they will do whatever it takes to solve a problem. Until we hired Jack recently, who I tell people, they're like, "You're on your phone." I'm like, "Oh, I'm texting one of my developers," and I'm like, "He's
15.
15. 15. It like gave everyone here at Security Weekly.
But technically, he's not a millennial. He's like whatever
he's
it is.
before, like
he's whatever's after.
millennial, right?
No,
but like, it gave everyone
Post.
here hope, and hopefully our audience too, that like, it's really it's a personality thing, right? And technically, a lot of our other stuff would be considered millennial too, right? And that kind of blows out of the water this prejudice that we have towards people who were born in a certain time frame. But it's really
totally
about passion.
agree. I mean,
right?
there's been this blanketing of, you don't want to hire millennials or you don't want to do that. But
no,
I
that's
think
not
at
true.
the end of the day, it's, do you have the drive? Do you have the passion? And that doesn't just mean this industry. That means any industry.
Yeah.
I know people who are passionate about accounting, and I can't get passionate about accounting. But, you bring up a very good point that we think that hiring people is really age related.
Yeah,
and I know that when I tried to hire someone to help me with social media, and I did the bad thing, and I hired someone who was in their early 20s, and they didn't know how to use a computer. They knew how to do everything on their phone.
Right.
So when I asked them to build an Excel spreadsheet, it was a complete disaster. That does bring up a really good point that I'm sort of my personal passion that I'm very frustrated about. We say that we have a workforce challenge. We say that we have all of these programs that are going after grade school kids and high school kids.
Mm-hmm.
There are millions of people out there who are retired or have been laid off, who are 50 years plus, and there is absolutely no security training program out there to teach them anything about.
But Kathleen, they could be equally as passionate.
Exactly.
That's my point. And it goes back to my comment, age is just a number, right? In fact, I got a resume today, someone who had experience. I don't know if you saw it. I don't know if you sent it just to me or not. It happened to be a he, but it been in the field for a long time. I'm like, I want to interview, because if the passion level is there, it doesn't matter who you are from a stereotypical perspective of age or gender or race, religion, whatever. If that passion level is there, I often find, and in fact, some of the more successful people I've worked with that are older, looking to make that transition into security, into IT, have an equally high level of passion as someone who came up through the schooling system, and maybe even went to university and got a degree and want to get a job, right? Like, all that are just like things. What really matters is your passion level. Someone who has worked in a career for 20 years could totally have the same level or higher passion level than someone who is just coming in the career field, maybe even not even having graduated
I would
from
even
college,
take it a step
and vice
further,
versa.
and I do this in a lot of the, because like I said, I a lot of people approach me, and I don't usually tell them to their face, but I have this nagging sense that the passion that we're talking about is, let's talk in terms of like, are you, do you want to be something that's associated with being a hacker? I am more inclined to think that, and I'm interested in your perspective, Kathleen. I kind of think that the passion is something you have or you don't have. It's something it's part of your DNA. It's not and it doesn't have to be.
They may not have realized that. Some of us could realize that and be like,
but what I'm saying is, I'm not sure it's something that can be taught, or there's a lot of people that come up to me that want to get into this because they think it's cool and sexy. I'm like, you don't have it.
Right. See, that's the point. See, now cybersecurity is cool and sexy. When we got into the space, it wasn't cool and sexy.
Sure.
It wasn't.
We were cool and sexy.
Of course.
But
the market wasn't. And now people see all the stuff that's going on.
But the problem is, back in the day, some of those people went into different fields. My friend Jay is a prime example. He worked supermarket industry for his whole life, did very well with Whole Foods, right? I'm like, dude, you could have been like a really awesome hacker. Because
I gotta jump in here.
Right, a lot of it is about sociology.
Joff wants to
hold
jump
on,
in.
Joff, 1 second. So he would look at what goes into the psychology behind someone buying something on an end cap, and how often and what you swap in on an end cap to move product. I'm like, dude, you could Like you're basically hacking people to make them buy something.
Right.
And it would totally go step outside the norms to go, that's not how you do something. Like you're going to do it this way. And he has moved up tremendously and is very successful in his field. I think you take that same person today who wants to get into technology and they have the aptitude to do what we do as security professionals today, right? I'm like, dude, you would make an awesome hacker.
Aptitude and having it are two different things. There's an aptitude.
And sometimes you don't even know that you have it
It's
unless
true, Kathleen.
you are presented with the right problem.
Right.
I mean, what's interesting is that I've been doing social engineering since I was 10 years old.
Yep.
But I didn't know it was social engineering. I just knew that I was really curious, and I would see something and I would put 3 and 3 together and figure out that something's not quite right. So I think it's having a supportive enough community or supportive enough coworkers to say, like Paul was saying to his friend, you got an interesting way of thinking of things.
Yes.
And I think that is sometimes what we have to really
It's like
foster.
my oldest son, because we think so much alike. I walked in the garage because I just knew if I moved the fireworks to this one location in the garage, he was going to go after it. I opened the garage door and his hands are in it. I'm like, dude, I knew you were going to exploit that vulnerability as soon as you could.
I want to hear what Joff was going to say.
Joff, over to you.
Yeah, I'd love to make a quick comment. So, I've thought about this a lot, being in the industry, and it really, to me, comes down to this. If you do not have the ability to verbally and in a written form communicate well, you're going to be in trouble. You need to be able to do that. And then beyond that, it's a tall order. Beyond that, you have to have the passion to doggedly chase down an information security issue to its very end. I mean, don't stop.
I mean, days. Raise your hand if you spent days tracing down a problem.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
it has the tenacity to go days.
I mean,
yes.
Tenacious passion, hours. I mean, run that thing into the ground till you come back to that customer and say, I know exactly what this is.
Yep.
And this is what this is in its glorious technical detail. And you have to be able to translate that back up to business terms. So if you want to get into this industry, you cannot be halfway there. You cannot even be 3/4 of the way there. You've got to be all in.
Yeah,
There's
you've got to within the confines of the law. You've got to be able to get to that goal and solve that problem.
But going back to
Jaffa brings up a really good point that I've been on the review committees for several conferences for the last few years, and I can't tell you how many people think that their writing skills are great or their presentation skills are great.
Yep.
I mean, the abstracts that I see come in, I'm like, oh my God, forget this. Absolutely forget this. And then I see them blasting the reviewers on Twitter. I was like, dude.
Well, I have a similar experience because I'll go to a lot of talks where people, it's a fairly common thread that communication is a big deal, and I'll go to a talk where somebody's talking about the need for good communication skills or business aptitude or some variation of theme, and they present it as a thesis statement or hypothesis, and then they proceed to be horrible at communicating their ideas.
Right. Yeah.
But to me, it goes back to, if we were going to add a fourth, the aptitude, the culture, the attitude, I really think there's something that in terms of what we're describing, I think it's something that you're born with and you have it. The
communication can be learned.
Yeah, there's a lot of elements of this that, in terms
Definitely
of aptitude,
learned.
you can cultivate and you can train yourself. But I know people, and this transcends technology. Like, I know people that are musicians that are skilled technically, but they don't have that
Je ne sais quoi.
thing that just that takes them to the next level.
I mean, perfect example, right? When I was in high school, I could not get in front of my class and present without saying like 32 ums.
It's
right?
learned.
It was brutal.
Totally agree.
I mean, just brutal. The things I went through in high school, but I taught myself how to communicate,
so many of us
how
do.
to
Yeah.
deliver. Right. That can be learned. That can definitely be learned, because if there's an example of it anywhere, it's me, because I was horrible at it.
Oh, I'm in the same boat. The only way I learned to present and communicate was when I worked for a university and I did trainings. And I was so nervous. And just through practice and just iteration and mentorship, right, you can learn that stuff. Now, there's a baseline for communications as well. And I think the folks that I see that are entrepreneurs, especially in our field, have that technical skill.
Entrepreneurs.
Are you people who create companies, Jeff? All right, they've got great communication
How is that
skills,
my tie?
great technical skills, and passion.
I'm a movie guy.
And that's a dangerous combination.
I'm a movie guy, and it's probably a movie that none of you guys have ever seen.
Is it Star Wars?
No. We got so far without that.
It's not PCI in the title,
It's
though,
not
I'm
even
sure.
PCI. It's a movie. I think it came out in the 70s. It was called The Paper Chase, and it was a story about first-year law students. And one of the law students had a photographic memory, so they could read the textbook. They had total recall. So they thought, law is all about
That was another movie,
knowing all the different things.
Arnold.
Yeah.
right?
But they
Hasta la vista, baby.
they had it all memorized. They could recall
Mars.
totally everything, but they sucked at being a lawyer, and they failed miserably because they didn't have that the aptitude, the skill, that drive that could apply all the written stuff that they could immediately recall. That to me is a good analogy of it, if you happen to have seen the movie.
I haven't.
I know you haven't.
Yes.
Matt, have you seen it?
I think so.
I want to say it was.
It's been a while.
I want to say
If I
This
saw
is
it, it's
better
been a
than
while
the
ago.
conversation.
Yeah, we can go.
Another 70s
We can go.
movie.
We can go on lots of tangents, so don't get us there.
If it's one thing we're good at, is tangents.
Very good.
I'm
Look,
pretty sure
squirrel!
I'm pretty sure that nobody disagrees with what I said. That you're either all in, you shouldn't be doing.
No,
this.
I agree with
well,
you.
I
Joff,
agree in as much as I think the all-in is something you either have or you don't.
You don't.
Have.
You've
I don't
got to
think you
be
can-
committed.
You
You've got
can't
to
learn to be all in.
Yeah, you can't. You either got to go or just get out, right? And like I said, there's a lot of us guys that started this industry before it was cool and sexy because we had a commitment and a passion to go do it. And gals. I use guys generically.
I know.
Sorry,
Yeah,
sorry,
but
sorry.
that's very offensive
I
and very
I know
tone deaf.
I'm offended.
It's very pound me too. Sorry, but I mean there are a lot of there's a lot of folks
It's
that
hashtag me too, not pound me too. That's a whole different connotation.
Jeff is correct.
it's the pound sign, but whatever. Just because you're
I know, it's a
Twitter
tech-
nerd,
it's a
just
technology
fine.
And the exclamation point is the bang.
It's the bang.
But explain that to my children.
Did he seriously just say pound me?
Pound and bang.
He did.
Pound me, comma 2. If we're gonna go there, anyways.
People.
Pound me
people.
too. That's the episode
But
name.
we went
I-
into the
I-
industry
I-
because
I-
we had a passion and a commitment to securing our environments and doing things before it was sexy and cool. And in people who have that level of commitment and passion are people that are really good for this industry.
And I agree. There's so many people who
I'm glad Kathleen has
get a
sense of humor.
degree in cybersecurity today and are like, I want to go work for a cybersecurity company and just don't have that passion. Like they're like, I want to go get my degree and I want to go work and start analyzing logs. And we're like, us collectively that have been in the industry for so long are like, you have to work in IT. You have to work as a developer or at least gain some experiences to understand how things are built and secured, to understand how to analytically think about how attackers might break into our systems to be an effective analyst. And a lot of that does speak to passion.
But if
right?
that
And-
doesn't even occur to you to think that way,
yeah,
I don't think
it's
that's
a-
something
I
that
agree.
you
I
train
agree.
people to.
Right.
Which
Well, we have a few issues here. One is we're talking about people needing passion, and we need to have passion no matter what job we do. If
It's
we're
true.
a chef,
Yep.
if we're
Absolutely,
a nurse,
Kathleen.
if we're a bus driver. But I think we have to say, if you're going to be successful in this community, you do have to have passion, and you do have to have that drive to find the solution, no matter how many days it's going to take. But I think at the end of the day, we are going to have people who basically know how to punch a clock and can analyze logs and such. I mean, I know this is not going to sit well, but the number of jobs that are out there, there's going to have to be some people who just like to punch the clock and look at the logs.
Yeah, I mean,
Actually,
there can't be 9-to-5ers in this job.
When I agree with Kathleen, I think there's many different levels, and I agree. I think if you're a senior person who started in security before there was job titles with security in the title, right? You have to enable and structure the program so that people can come in and be very effective at their jobs that are in whatever role, the SOC or whatever role that it is, and be able to analyze things that have a certain mindset that can analyze that data and achieve a goal that is very beneficial to the organization.
Yeah.
Right?
I would agree and disagree only with what Kathleen said, only in as much as, she used the term, if you're going to be successful in this business. And I would say, that's very subjective. If I would rephrase it and say, if you want to be good at what you want to do, and everything we've just said, because what is success? What is that? And that means something different to all of us.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people come into this industry that aren't necessarily qualified or don't have that inner whatever it is that I think you're born with. They think it's a way to make a living, it's a way to get rich, it's a way to make money. But at the end of the day, if you're good at what you do and you can go to sleep at night thinking,
but
I did
it's not
something.
just that. I think that Josh Wright told me very early on, and he was the first person that had said this phrase to me. He said, look, if you love what you do, you don't have to work a day in your life, right?
Absolutely.
And if you, like we said, punch clock, work 9 to 5, and you love what you do, that's cool. And whatever like spectrum you fall on in your career, if you're loving what you do, like we talked about accountants, right? Like Sam has an accounting background. My dad was an accountant, right? Our accountant Al is awesome. They love looking at numbers.
They
as
love
an example.
spreadsheets.
They love
Not only
spreadsheets.
do they love looking at numbers, and I'm not one of them, but and my wife's an accounting major.
Yeah.
They love figuring out why, and this is going to be, foreign to a lot of our audience, but balancing a checkbook and being off by 5 cents.
1 cent, not even 5
or 1 cent.
1
Not
cent.
even, yeah, 1 cent.
Taking the hours
yeah.
that we would, we're talking about taking hours to just dig through and try to figure
That's
something out.
what's really, that's my twisted
but that
mind,
drives
though.
them.
Yes, but I've got that same thing.
You do.
Right?
You're awesome
I
with spreadsheets,
balance a
yeah.
checkbook. I'm like, that sucker better be 0.00.
Whereas
every single month.
my
Because if
wife-
it's not, I am researching, going, where did that
One
freaking
reason
penny
why
go?
I hired Matt as
Right,
CEO.
exactly.
My wife's father, who was a fairly successful businessman, his attitude was, I've still got checks in the checkbook, so I'm good.
My attitude is I hired people like Matt and Sam who are awesome in accounting. Right. It's good. Right.
But it's not in my DNA. I mean,
exactly.
I'm like,
Right.
I'm like,
numbers.
there's some kind of ML algorithm that'll make that work out. Like,
No,
whatever.
it's just an Excel formula. Trust me. At the end of the day, it's just a bunch of
It's
Excel
office
formulas.
space. Let's just scrape off.
It is.
It's scrape off those percentages, those fractions of pennies. Who will notice?
Kathleen, we warned you.
Accountants will notice.
We're awesome at tangents.
Oh no, it's perfect. It's perfect. I have no problem with that. But at the end of the day, what we're talking about is people being happy with their job, and
Yes.
that's
Yes.
the
Yes.
challenge. That a lot of people are spending a lot of money going and getting certificates and degrees and being lured by the fact that they could be cool and they could be Mr. Robot, they could do all this, and then at the end of the day they find out I'm just looking at a screen all day. I mean, I was pre-med, pre-law in college, and when I found out that to be pre-med I had to stand in a laboratory for 12
Well,
hours a
and
day.
Kathleen, on a closing note, because I've loved this conversation, so I did not in any way want to end it due to time. However, the last thing I think is there are some people who can, in terms of, I guess, aptitude, right, be comfortable with staring at a screen all day. My wife, being someone who works in the medical field, does not like monotony in any shape, form, or fashion, does not like being in an office and staring at a screen all day. And when we get home and compare notes, right, it's a totally different day, right? I mean, you couldn't, I don't think, pick polar opposites. I, for the most part, recently in the past couple of months,
because
right,
my wife's in the healthcare industry too. So,
so you know, right? Like you and I can be like, yeah, for the past couple of months, like I pretty much came to work and I stared at a screen all day, and like I wrote code or I analyzed spreadsheets or I did this thing, and they're like, in the past couple of months, someone in healthcare, as an example, may have interfaced with conceivably almost 100 different people and gone from several different rooms and done 30 or 40 different exams. That's what she likes to do. Right. And that speaks to aptitude. You have to have the aptitude in this field to be comfortable with, I'm going to sit in an office and I'm going to stare at a screen, and you have to be passionate about that. And if you're not okay with it, that's okay. There are plenty of other jobs you can be passionate about that don't require that. And that's, I think, what we're talking about when we speak to aptitude, right?
Are we going to ask Kathleen 5 questions?
Yes. Oh, we should. We really
should. Like,
Lord.
Fill your wine glass.
Yeah,
oh
you might need it.
It's empty.
We totally should.
Kathleen, are you ready to play 5 questions with Security Weekly?
Oh, God, no. But go ahead.
Kathleen, question 1 is 3 words to describe yourself.
Passionate, harmonious, and caring.
If you were a serial killer, what would be your weapon of choice?
Garrote.
Ooh.
If you wrote a book about yourself, what would the title be?
My life at the pond.
In the popular game of Ask Grabby Grabby, do you prefer to go first or second?
Second.
Choose 2 celebrities to be your parents.
Alive, dead, fictional, or otherwise.
There we go. I knew somebody was going to say. Yeah.
There we go. Ingrid Bergman and Alan Rickman.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
Kathleen, you were on point with those questions. There is no right or wrong answer,
but
I don't want to say that we judge people, but the time you take to answer those questions,
totally judge people.
We absolutely
judge people. I would say you've heard those questions before and maybe thought about the answer.
Heard them.
So if you've never heard them and you're being honest with me, which I believe you because you seem like a very honest person, that was fantastic. Awesome. Those are hard.
Well,
those are hard
I
questions.
enjoyed it.
Those are like the toughest questions we ask on the entire show. So, Kathleen,
I want to know when we're going to talk about Hacker Summer Camp and what people are going to do to prepare their careers for Hacker Summer Camp.
It is.
Shots.
It's a great question. I will. In many of us at Security Week, we will be in a suite interviewing people and supporting that for much of the time, but it's a good networking opportunity, and you should prepare as such based on all the things I think we talked about in this segment.
Yes, definitely.
Yep.
Kathleen, thank you so much for appearing on Paul's Security Week.
Thank you. I really enjoyed it. Thank you, Jeff. Great meeting you, Matt. Take care. Bye, Jeff.
It was a lot of fun.
Bye.
With that, stay tuned to
Jeff.
take a short break. Come back with the security news. Stay tuned.